It is Sunday, December the 8th, 2013, and I'm here in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal that has recently hung out a banner saying live in harmony, vivre ensemble, so literally in the French would say live together. Doesn't really say much about harmony, actually. That's not a very good translation, because living together doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually living in harmony. So nonetheless, it is, besides being the 8th of December 2013, it is also the 7th day in the Unitarian Universalist observance of Chalica, which is a 7-day holiday, as it were, that celebrates the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. So we are here in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal protesting against the fact that Unitarian Universalists at the Unitarian Church of Montreal, at the Unitarian Universalist Association down in Boston, and at many other Unitarian Universalist churches do a pretty poor job of living up to the 7 principles that they claim to affirm and promote. So we will just zoom out here a little bit. So this is the entrance to the I was about to say Atheist Church of Montreal. It's close enough, actually. The Unitarian Church of Montreal is in fact largely dominated by the atheist Unitarian faction, and unfortunately amongst the atheist Unitarians at the Unitarian Church of Montreal, but also elsewhere, there are intolerant, hostile atheists that are quite anti-religious. So this whole vivre ensemble thing, showing the symbols of Buddhism, Christianity, not sure what the third one is, Islam, Sikhism, Judaism, Unitarian Universalism, not sure what the one after Unitarian, it looks like it might be an atheist symbol, it's hard to tell. And then it looks like Jainism, paganism, Hinduism, and I'm not sure exactly what that last symbol on the far right is. But they're essentially saying here, that all of the different religions should live in harmony. But the fact of the matter is that Unitarian Universalists themselves go out of their way to be intolerant and abusive and bigoted, even in some cases, against other religions. In fact, the current president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Reverend Peter Morales, when he ran for president, he had a stump speech, sermon type thing. It was basically a sermon that also announced that he was running for president. And in that sermon, in order to bolster his claim, that Unitarian Universalism could be the religion for our time. Please note the. He didn't say a religion for our time. He said the religion for our time. He was essentially saying that Unitarian Universalism could be the #1 predominant religion for the 21st century, if not the 3rd millennium. And in doing so, he put down Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and any number of other unspecified old religions, who he described as obsolete religions created for another time that only lead to the darkness of such things as intolerance and prejudice and so on and so forth. Can't remember all of the various negative things that he listed, but those are some of them. He basically just trashed the other major religions to bolster his idea that Unitarian Universalism was the best and #1 religion, or could be. Just going to pick up a picket sign that fell down here. So yeah, here we are. Not exactly living in harmony with Unitarian Universalists, and largely because they haven't really tried very hard to live in harmony with me, to say nothing of other God-believing people. So here we are with our little protest, which has been going on for quite some time now, basically over 15 years. This protest has been going on ever since Reverend Ray Drennan decided it'd be a really good idea to label an interreligious event that brought together Christians and Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus and Baha'is and pagans and Unitarian Universalists, of course, including Unitarian Universalists of the atheist persuasion, just not the intolerant, bigoted ones, in a quite harmonious interreligious event. Well, according to Reverend Ray Drennan, this interreligious event that tried to promote harmony and care for the creation was a cult. And according to Reverend Ray Drennan, the religious mystical experience that I had that basically inspired me to start this interreligious event was a psychotic experience, and he angrily demanded I seek psychiatric treatment, professional help, to use his term. And he, in this meeting where he labeled Creation Day as a cult, me as psychotic, also thought it'd be a really good idea to trash my religious beliefs as being nothing but silliness and fantasy. Down the road a bit, Reverend Ray Drennan offensively attacked the fact that former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Roman Catholic state funeral was Roman Catholic, according to Reverend Ray Drennan, you know, being the sort of hardcore, die-hard atheist that he was, and probably still is. The state funeral of Pierre Elliott Trudeau should not have been a Roman Catholic rite. And he expressed this opinion of his in a opinion editorial in the Montreal Gazette, a very opinionated opinion editorial. In fact, an opinionated editorial that was actually rather obnoxious and offensive. He trashed Pierre Elliott Trudeau's funeral as a sham state funeral. And he also wrote off the religious rituals of most religions as being, and I quote, meaningless rituals. This is actually a common term used by the hardcore atheists, you know, when they're talking about religious rituals, you know, they're meaningless. Of course, their own Unitarian Universalist rituals, if they happen to be Unitarian Universalists, well, those aren't meaningless. But if you're, you know, Roman Catholic priest presiding over the funeral of a former Canadian Prime Minister, well, yeah, that ritual's meaningless. Typical fundamentalist atheist intolerance and bigotry, hardly living in harmony. So here we are. It is the 7th day of Chalica. It's dedicated to respect for the interdependent web of all existence. So it covers a lot of territory. And we're basically doing our little bit by protesting the fact that a lot of Unitarian Universalists do a very, very poor job of respecting the interdependent web of all existence. Quite the contrary. They seem to be very, very oblivious to how their words and actions are actually quite interdependent with other people. So here we are. I just set up my picket signs for the second time. I took a little break. Had to deal with some camera issues to get some more memory on the card, and decided to come back. So we have here the chalk slogans that I actually laid down last night. I protested last night on the 6th day of Chalica, which is dedicated to, let's see now, affirming and promoting a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. That's the 6th principle of Unitarian Universalism. And the more I think about it, you know, some of these principles are sort of overlapping, and to the extent that they're a bit redundant, because you also have the 2nd principle, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. So, that's not all that different with, world community, with peace, liberty, and justice for all. I think there's some overlap there. Nonetheless, we protested the fact that the Unitarian Universalist Association actually goes to considerable lengths to pervert justice, to restrict liberty, specifically freedom of speech, and perhaps other liberties, but definitely freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. The Unitarian Universalist Association, as well as the Unitarian Church of Montreal, have in fact misused and abused the Canadian Criminal Code to try and cover up and hide the fact that some Unitarian Universalist ministers are more than a little bit abusive. If we limit it to the Unitarian Church of Montreal and their perversion of justice, well, that was basically several things. Perhaps the most serious was when I was arrested for allegedly disrupting the order of solemnity of church services. That's the order and solemnity of church services, I should say. So there's a law in the Canadian Criminal Code that prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of meetings held for religious purpose, if I remember the exact words correctly. So in other words, church services. It's not limited to that, by the way. It actually prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of meetings held for a moral purpose, so it doesn't necessarily have to be religious. But nonetheless, the Unitarian Church of Montreal wanted to prevent me from protesting in front of the church. In other words, they wanted to basically deny me the liberty of engaging in peaceful public protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. So initially what happened is they sought a injunction. They wanted an injunction, from the court that would tell me that I can't protest anymore. And they were basically informed that, well, sorry, there's this thing called the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and people can protest. You can't just get an injunction against protesters for protesting. They were informed, the leaders of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, that the only circumstance under which they could obtain an injunction preventing someone from protesting in front of their church was if the person was convicted of a criminal act. And I expect a criminal act, specifically related to the protest. So the Unitarian Church of Montreal and their lawyers, which included a Queen's Counsel lawyer by the name of Kenneth Howard QC, poured through the Canadian Criminal Code, and they found this law which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of church services, and thought, well, that'd be, we can basically have Robin charged with disrupting church services. Even though I'm outside the church, not making a lot of noise, basically invisible, they basically tried to misuse and abuse this law to get me convicted of a crime so that they could then get an injunction putting a permanent end to my protest. So this is perversion of justice to restrict or even deny liberty, the exact opposite of the sixth principle, which calls for world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Total violation of that principle. Well, as it happens, it wasn't too difficult to prove to the court that, well, you know what, they can't see me from inside the church when I'm engaged in my protest, because you got these narrow slit windows, and two of them are quite high up, and so anyone looking through those windows when they're sitting down at ground level, all they're going to see is like sky and tree. And this window here is actually completely blocked by a memorial to the Montreal firefighters that were killed when the church's organist burnt down the previous building when a wall collapsed on their fire truck, or on them in any case. Well, it collapsed definitely on the fire truck. I'm not sure if they were in it, but two Montreal firemen were in fact killed when the church's organist, who
was going through a sex change operation, or at least hormone treatment, had a bad hair day, and decided to burn down the church. So really the only window that it might be possible to see me through is this one, but it is actually a fair distance above the ground. It looks to be at least 5 or more feet above ground level, and of course the chairs are, at about the level where the changing colors there. The floor would be about where the top of the lighter stone is. So anyone sitting in that window likely wouldn't see me anyway, or if they did, they'd just see my head passing the window. So totally invisible from inside the sanctuary, and of course can't really be heard. I'm not making a lot of noise. I don't have a big noise making element of this protest. So that's it. I actually told the Crown Prosecutor that it might be a good idea to just drop the charges, because as far as I was concerned, couldn't be heard, couldn't be seen, and as far as I was concerned, it never actually disrupted a church service. But the Crown Prosecutor refused to drop the charges. He said he had witnesses that could prove otherwise. So it went to trial. And because I felt the criminal charge of allegedly disrupting church services was such total bullshit, I decided to represent myself, because I felt the chances of being found guilty were absolutely minimal. I basically felt that the only circumstance that I could be found guilty was if there was a serious miscarriage of justice. So I thought, well, let's just represent ourselves here. Let's not waste any money on lawyers. So I performed my own cross-examination of church witnesses, and in the process of doing that, to make a long story short, I won the trial in about 90 seconds, which doesn't mean to say that there weren't several different court dates spread over about 3 years. And